late night stream. I've got some energy here because we got some clear ass skies tonight, and we got M42. I saw some Mars and Jupiter earlier, but there's something up with the scope today, so I had to sit and fix it, and by the time that happened, it was in between Jupiter rising and then waiting for the moon to just come up. So we got like a 36% waning crescent tonight, this morning. I am a little bit tired, so forgive me if I'm slurring a little bit, but yeah, got the camera working, got the scope working, got M42 Nebula starting off while the moon comes up. Amazing detail on it tonight. You can see this is the great Orion Nebula with the cluster right at the center called the trapezium cluster. It looks like 4 stars, but in fact there are actually doublets in there. And this is such a fantastic just thing that we can actually watch live video of the nebula. This is this is the brightest nebula you can see with a homebrew setup. Hopping in here to say what's up to Gnostic Chef and Hurdy Gurdy Man and Effed Up World hopping in. What's going on? Good to see y'all. Thanks for taking this little trip with me. We'll let our space fam trickle in. I know it's like kind of a surprise stream, but I'll take advantage of a good sky if I can. So we'll stick here with M42 for a little bit, play some tunes, and then we'll check out our waning moon, which has some awesome detail tonight. I'm pretty excited, and the skies have been excellent. So let's get grooving here. This one's called Grown to Like You. (2:48 a.m., 9/19/22). This year has gone by real quick, but we're still here, and that's good. say what's up to Genghis Khan. What's going on? Nice to see you. So yeah, just took a couple of 1-second exposures here so we could see more of the nebular detail. Just stunning, actually. I don't have many words tonight, nothing too poetic, but just amazing. A true experience to be able to do this and just have access to tools like this and cameras like this. So feeling very blessed with the astronomy tonight. Hope everybody's feeling great. Let me know if you have any song requests, just going through the playlist here. So yeah, a couple more minutes and then over to the moon. Moon's about to clear the lamppost or the whatever cable wire thing in front of me. So excited to see that. Nearly 3 a.m. here, rolling into Monday morning. High vibrations all the way. to say what's up to Nebula, Orion, what's going on. We just were looking at the Orion Nebula, speaking of which. Hope you caught it a little bit. That was the first like 15 minutes or so, but let's get to the moon. Sorry, let me lower this a little bit. Yeah, so what do we got? We got a 36.5% waning crescent tonight. One of my favorite phases. I know as I write it, I'm like, well, I say that almost at every phase of the moon, but it's true because pretty much every phase is my favorite. But it's really, really cool right here. We got the Terminator coming across, cutting right into Mare Imbrium, starting to creep up to Sinus Iridum at the top left. You got Copernicus as the main crater. We're right in the middle. Then Aristarchus and Kepler at the bottom right. Clavius and Schiller, a bit of Tycho under the shadow. Interesting lighting on it tonight, of course, at the very, this morning rather, not even tonight, it's 3 a.m. So a lot of brightness at the bottom, trying to get the right contrast here and the right levels. So let's adjust a little bit of the filter here. Let's see if we can't get like an even surface thing. There's a lot of nice detail under the Terminator, so you're gonna have to just play with it. That's too much. All right, I think that's good. That's where it's at. So as it gets a little bit higher, maybe we'll try and see the Earthshine portion as well. Keep the grooves going here. Anybody else? Yeah, just jump back a little bit, Nebula. You'll see a little bit. Took a couple of nice shots. So let's keep going with the tracks. Just sitting here for a bit. It is going in and out of focus, but when it's sharp, man, this whole area looks like such an amazing sequence of little geometries. Now, granted, looking at it on a small thumbnail, it's a little bit different, but here you have like, it's almost like a little chicken head looking over. It's like a whole little interactive scene going on. This is the region right around Tycho and Clavius, all coming up under the Terminator. So I'm just going to stick around, let it clear up a few times so we can see some of this nice detail. Yo, what's going on, Morgan Ellis? I see ya. All good. Just riding out here for a little bit. Yeah, just reading some of the comments here about the atmospherics being pretty lousy. Nebula Orion says, need to get you on top of a mountain. Definitely heard that one before, and I concur to a certain degree. It would be nice to get some clear, still air to scope through, but it's also that time in Florida where the weather is still shifting, got tons of rainstorms, and the atmospherics are not perfect just yet, so there is that. Hurdy-gurdy man says, or Hawaii. I love Hawaii. Like I said, it's when I went to Kona, to Big Island, I got to go up to Mauna Kea and Kilauea and all the wayas. So stupid. Just went all over the place with a friend of mine, and it was really, really incredible. Got to see the stars under a perfectly clear sky. Of course, I wasn't as versed as I am today with astronomy or science or anything for that matter, but I do remember it quite vividly. Excuse me. So yeah, just sitting here with our beautiful moon. Don't want to do too much talking tonight. You can tell I'm a little bit tired and scratchy, but this whole moon cycle this last month has been amazing. Discovering Jeffrey Walensky's channel, the Stellar Metamorphosis stuff, digging deep into consciousness and studying a lot more about that, sharing it with y'all. Rupert Sheldrake just put out a great video, just really concise at this point. It's just amazing how long he's been doing it and how clear he's been about the morphic field, morphic resonance, and of course the stuck-up dogma that we face constantly with trying to introduce new ideas. Nebula Ryan says, I'd like to go out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a scope. See, yeah, so to get me back on track there, so the thing is, doing scoping in Florida is one of those very lucky things because the weather's typically good 7 to 8, sometimes 9 months out of the year. And other places, really, it's so much more finicky. It's one of those specific things that you get in Central Florida, or at least where I'm at. And when you do get clear skies, they're just consistent for months at a time, from like maybe October, end of November, all the way through February, March. It has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, but early on it was just incredible. There were stretches for months at a time with clear skies. The other thing is the convenience aspect of having a home and and being able to scope from there with all your gear, having a high-speed connection. All those sites, the remote sites that seem great in terms of viewing, all require like a ton of factors to go right, like good weather, moving the gear around, having a place, being there at the right time of year, dealing with cold weather. So it always seems like kind of a dream to go to one of those cool places with thin atmosphere and like very crystal clear viewing. But then you'd really only get like a few sessions. The reality of it, when you think it through, tends to seem grass is greener, at least in my case at this point. I wondered maybe going to something like Sedona or New Mexico and setting up in a dry region, if that was better, and I might one day. But here it's really just, I think half the battle with astronomy and watching and viewing the moon and all the other stuff is the convenience aspect, is just being able to set up and quickly do it. And also consistent clear nights. So I don't know, right now I feel like it's such a blessed scenario, but I do hear you on potentially getting some very clear shots in different places, maybe someday. So yeah, I'm back at the wide shot over here just so that we can see a little bit more clearly. Finish up my thoughts on summarizing this last lunar cycle, because I don't know if I'm going to be up tomorrow around the same time to get the next phase, but this is pretty good. This is about 12 or 13 sessions this moon cycle. Saw a lot of it, a lot of different phases, a lot of different detail. Of course, the main thing with the moon that people don't know about is how the moon was formed, how old the moon is, and of course where all the features came from. So it's good to talk about, to have just a contemporary understanding of, like, the mainstream understanding is the moon clumped together and got hit by a bunch of meteors. Alternatively, the moon was captured by Earth. The moon was the core of a star. The moon could have been potentially a habited Earth, and ultimately maybe volcanism or electrical discharge may have also attributed to surface features. And one of the biggest points about it is that you can see all the geometry on the surface of the moon, tons of hexagons, dodecahedrons, octagons, nested hexagons, and that is a big clue. What's up, Sigma Theta? Do you remember when 21st September became 24th December? Earth, wind, fire, and alchemy. No, I don't know, but I do know that there was like a triplicate blood moon back in 2015, and I think one of the first live streams or like videos I did was in September of 2015, right around this time. So coming up on 7 years here. But I was certain, I was like, well, if the world's going to end and the moon's going to come crashing to Earth, I better be watching it. So it didn't happen. It didn't happen in 2012 either. And none of these solar flares are happening. I subscribe to a ton of people who are in the electric universe kind of paradigm or alternate physics paradigm, and there are so many videos where it's like, it's coming right for you. It's coming right for us. Solar X-class solar flare. It's going to wipe us all out. Coming right for you. And I don't know. I don't know how you live in how people live in that state of anxiety. Yo, what's going on, Waleed Z? How's it going? Hey there. All right, 3:20 a.m. with our moon. So we talked about consciousness, stellar metamorphosis. I'm not talking about tonight, but in general, this moon cycle. And I think for the next moon cycle, there's going to be some new music. I'm working on a ton of new tunes that I haven't shared with y'all. I'm very excited to do that because while I love all the music so far, it's good to just get new stuff out there, kind of keep it fresh, and then we'll get back to all these old tunes and people will be even more happy with them. The other part is I am working on slides and 3D renders to figure out like how to better present some of these points about stellar metamorphosis, consciousness being fundamental, hexagons on the moon, electric universe, connectivity, the fact that if God exists, and God likely exists, but you, the person, the self, is the God because you made your own eyes and you make your own body. And no one else does. Even if you want to attribute someone else to doing it, you do all that work. So God exists and you're it, I think is a pretty big one. The other one is the extended mind, of course, the mind outside the body. That's why people can't find memories in the brain. So the human system is a kind of tuning fork that resonates with its field of consciousness. That's a whole thing that like no one really talks about. And what else? Yeah, big ideas. I know that it's so interesting how few people really talk about these concepts in depth. Most people are just talking about the same regurgitated traditional ideas and or these elaborate ideas about imaginary concepts versus just looking at what we already have. And I was caught in that same trap too years ago when I used to just watch string theory videos and say, oh, these guys really got it. They got it figured out. What the hell do I know? Watch the Large Hadron Collider and see all those images from them and say, oh yeah, they're going to do like mini black holes and look at the echoes of these muons and gluons and the strong force and just all this big language. And something I said on the last show is like real mastership gives you the ability to explain something in very simple ways, not in dumbed down ways, still highly complex and thought-provoking and layered, but not just ad hoc language, just tons of different formulas, tons of different fancy words, lots of diversionary tactics to really say, well, we're not really sure what this is. Here's a bunch of word salad and math salad. Hopefully you won't ask any further. any further questions. But I think at some point, most of us do get to some of us get to a place where we can ask those questions and say, wait, I can know the self. I can feel empowered. And I can figure this out. And so that's what I've been working on for myself and then sharing it with y'all. So I know I'm probably just rambling a little bit here. See Renegade, what's going on? Taurus within Taurus. No, Taurus within Torah within Taurus within Torah, and so on. Nathan of Gaza. Love it. Like a mantra. I mean, that's this thing, this recursive oscillation. Whatever words you want to use, we end up having the same, not the same effect, but an effect. All right, I'm probably not making too much sense here, but I was trying to recap just a little bit of this last cycle of streams, the last 12 or 13 shows, and I feel like it's a culmination of a lot of years of thinking and studying. And there are a lot of super big concepts. It's not really simple to just say this one thing or the other. But I think yeah, stellar metamorphosis, huge. Human biofield and morphic field, pretty huge. Like memory outside the body. Conscious fundamental. I don't want to say fundamentalism because it's really like consciousness is fundamental. And life emerges from what is pure intelligence. And so it's really so many big concepts. All right, enough rambling here. Let's just enjoy some tunes. But if you have any questions or thoughts on all that stuff, let me know. Let's go with some Salt Man over here. It's an old groovy track. false. Their words cut harder once. Side bombing, mom and dad. Those times ain't coming back. Hard to know just how to feel. And could they ever know peace? Maybe I'll just cut them slack. But they work so hard to relax. And when they get their bodies to the sea, I feel the end becomes me. We're the end, come the solution. Smiles, not confusion. My heart, I release you to the memory of this place. High, stellar far, song, an analog. And I feel like running back. Gone too far this time, but I'm glad we're analog. Yeah, just happening to add a little bit to this small discussion happening with Waleed. Waleed talking about being open to this idea about the human biofield and our conscious human field basically being where we store information and how we access the field to inform our own body shape and our whole lives, basically by recursively checking with our field. And our field tells us, informs us, I mean literally inform, and then remember as opposed to dismember. So we remember and synchronize oscillations with little bits of data in our field, the same way we do with computers now, the same way an atomic structure is set up where you have the nucleus and the electron shells. I mean, we have obviously a more advanced version of that now, so it's like a probability cloud of electric discharge. But the structure of an atom, why wouldn't that be the same structure of a human encased in a human biofield? Now, when you're born, that's the first layer, and when you're older, that layer becomes the farthest layer from us. And so that's why it's difficult to access older memories and why it's much easier to access closer memories like yesterday, for example, because the layer that you've created, it's a very diffuse layer of encoded plasma. Basically, we imprint our human frequency resonance into the field. As we resonate with our field, we create new layers that push the old layers out. And therefore, halfway between, there's a half-life, there's a decay and angular decays, essentially, of time as it moves away from us. And that's why time keeps slipping. All the little fun quotes that we have, the colloquialisms and the sayings, all are derived ultimately from the truth. But most people don't even consider the fact that memories might be stored outside the brain. Neuroscience certainly doesn't, even though when they do MRI scans, this is leading me to something I want to talk about as well, but they do these scans and they show that different parts of the brain light up, and then they talk about all the different parts of the brain and say that, well, if we cut this part of the brain, then that happens, and if we cut this part of the brain. But then you see other talks, like TED Talks, where they talk about people without certain parts of the brain, like the frontal cortex, or without the, what's the other one? certain parts of the brain just missing, and yet still people still functioning to a degree. But it's not even that they just function. The fact is, like, there's no point where you shut off entire activity. There's always some sort of activity. So it just shows that essentially we're within a field. The brain is within an electric field, as opposed to the brain generates consciousness from within the skull. So that's pretty much, I think, one of these massive upendings of traditional science, where it's either something that's completely hidden and subverted, or it's never really approached by mainstream science. I see Richard Garcia. What's going on? Long time. Great to catch you live. Nice to see you. Copper Tropicals. Hey, hey, hey. Let's see. Let me just, I'll finish my thought here. But yeah, so atomic structure, nucleus and shells. Earth has its Van Allen radiation belts, right? But when you look at the diagram, really these are these giant magnetic field, like etheric double-layered plasma belts, right? So then the sun has its influence sphere, and therefore humans and animals and creatures must all also have an influential sphere of resonance that we carry around. That's how we go to a different place on Earth, and yet we retain our memories, all our memories. The decay is really so interesting here, because if your birth memories are the furthest away from you, it really actually explains how we can remember everything, and we can remember some things better than others, which is something that just neuroscience can't really explain. One, how memories are stored, but two, how we recall memories, where they are, and how instantaneously we recall these memories. And then we also do this cool remixing of memories, where we take a few things from different memories and create a whole new nodal path. And so it's so much more logical that human memory is actually extended beyond the brain in the human biofield. And this field is readable, right, by the human interface, the antenna that is the stack of energetic plasmoids or Z-pinches along our spinal, our whole nervous system, which almost looks, well, not almost, exactly looks like a plasma filament, very complex plasma filament. And this plasma filament has its fields, and that's how we interface with our existence. And the field also informs the shape of our body. So it is the counter space to the shape of the body, which is fat, skinny, fat, skinny, fat, skinny, right? The head is fat, neck is skinny, shoulders are fat, waist skinny, hips are fat, legs are fat, skinny, fat, skinny. We're like peas on a pod, or we're literal wave fronts, compression rarefaction of a wave front, crest and trough, but also cascading and coming to a point, right? So you have spirals that the body outlines, or that outline the body, right? Both are true. Anyway, that's the thought. Where I got it from is from listening to Eileen McCusick about the human biofield and tuning forks. And then if you couple that with the idea of the electric body, which is something I want to mention, this whole idea that we live in a gravity-centric universe, yet everything, our power grid, all health and reference to human biology, cellular biology, and chemistry, all of this is electricity. And somehow in space, no electricity. It's just the craziest thing how astrophysics, astronomy, physics in general have completely robbed us of this idea of the interconnected cosmos that are connected via electrical currents. It's just so crazy. I mean, this is the fundamental thing that Thunderbolts Project talks about, but I mean, it's so insane that we just don't, that's not just the mainstream understanding at this point, because how else could it really work? But somehow we have a little bit of science for this thing, a little bit of science for that thing. Then the other part of this would be, since we're talking about fractal recursion, And we're talking about the human biofield, earth biofield, solar field, atomic field, quantum field, hydrogen field, electron, even inside the electron that apparently, you can't break any further. This is going in and out of existence, so to speak. But this even is an oscillation. And therefore it's oscillating inside both fields, maybe, like negative and positive spaces. So there's always this thing. It's always the same rule set that enables this amazing variety. And then as the rule set evolves, the varieties get modified a little bit, or at least we're able to modify ever so slightly. So there's something I've been studying about how, in a very simple sense, we've heard about it in terms of the 100th monkey effect, or where they taught rats certain mazes or certain things in a laboratory. Then after a number of trials, essentially rats at a different part of the world, in a different part of the world, were able to run this maze as well, if not better, than the previous generation, and do it much faster. And so this idea of not only panpsychism, consciousness being the fundamental nature of all things, but of course this idea that we have a morphic field where ideas, concepts are baked into the field by the organisms, and therefore other organisms can tap into the field and learn those skill sets faster and faster and faster as we evolve. So we're seeing it now with these prodigious children who can do all sorts of incredible musical feats that just didn't exist. And, on and on, of course, like dancing and singing, and just skill level, maybe not soul necessarily, but skill level has just absolutely gone through the roof now. And people don't really know exactly why, but it's likely because after a lot of work and people solving the problems and people practicing, this is resonating in the Earth field. And the Earth biome has all this information, and therefore babies born now have immediate access to this extremely high-level, thought-out, worked-out information, and therefore can compound upon it and fractalize it even further and learn it in ways that we could have never done generations ago. Makes absolute perfect sense. Walid says some call it DNA memory. Well, it is that, but when you think about breaking down the concept of DNA, the way scientists talk about DNA is they say DNA is self-organizing, or it's self-replicating, or the string of amino acids, they just string themselves together, or the proteins, they fold. But all this language is like they do that, and those things do that, and those other things do that, and it's never saying, well, these things are all within the body, and therefore you must be doing it. The self is actually doing this organization. And therefore either the DNA itself is smarter than a human, or a human contains DNA that performs a task based on fractalized intelligence. So the DNA essentially, or a protein, or an amino acid, or a building block of life, so to speak, the simplest action is it does something and it interacts with the field, and then it reciprocates and it notices what happened with the field, adjusts behavior, and does the next thing. Absolutely everything at the microscopic level is doing, as long as it materializes into this reality, that's what happens. It has an interaction. Interaction is fundamental to the idea of consciousness. It's the patterning of consciousness is the interaction. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Renegade says epigenetic. All this stuff makes sense to me. But yeah, those are some ideas. It's been really great to dig deeper and deeper, and then also look at mainstream stuff and kind of be able to say, well, mainstream has all these they just, Jeffrey said this, I've been stealing it, but they know so much about so little. And I know that's a bit of an insult, but I know that a lot of neuroscientists, there are people, I gotta say, there are people out there who are not completely closed to this idea. For example, Daniel Theus, he's a liver pathologist who completely understands and does talks where he's talking about how consciousness is fundamental at the end of the day, yet in in his liver pathology work, like he really couldn't even bring that idea up. Then you have, of course, Rupert Sheldrake. I mentioned his last video is excellent if you haven't seen it. And he actually talks about Wordle. I don't know if anybody does that puzzle game, but Wordle, he was talking about how people all over the world do Wordle, and depending on the time of day you do it, or over time, people have just gotten better at it because other people have already solved it. Same thing with the crossword and so on. So he references this idea of the morphic field and how essentially all life forms are learning from each other, from the self. The self is learning from the self fractalizing, and then ultimately getting better and better at learning and creating even more detailed and complex fractals of intelligence. Reciprocating processional hyperboloid. Exactly, Renegade, I love that. Waleed says, absence of proof is not proof of absence. I've always wondered about that, because we're getting to the point where there are certain things that you could just tell somebody matter of fact, like straight up. I can tell you right now, for example, if you look at yourself in the mirror, you can see the structure of the human body, of your own body, and you can say, well, who made this body? And as soon as you say that, you really have to consider what that really means, which means you actually fabricated your entire skeleton, all the nerves, all the hairs, the eyeballs, put everything in the right place, it all works. And then you have to think, oh, well, or the way I think about it, I'm like, well, if I did that, then how can I even ask the question about, is there a God? What is God? What is life? What is purpose? Because there is no other being that crafted this body. And the insect, right? The flies craft themselves. They self-organize. And then when we think about that, you start to think, you're like, well, you could tell that to somebody and people will matter-of-factly just deny it. Almost 75% of people will just say, no, I don't believe that's the case. It's a God. It's another person. It's another entity. It's something I'll never understand. I could tell somebody that exercise, and they would still tell me, well, no, it's actually not that. So I wonder about this idea of proof versus not proof. I think some people will just get it, and many people just won't, no matter what explanation you give them. But I just went off on a tangent there. This idea of absence of proof is not proof of absence. I mean, that falls into play when we're talking about like dark energy, dark matter, string theory. A lot of people are alluding to these agency mainstream sciences as if they are completely wrong at their core. And I've moved a little bit away from that recently because I realized that string theory has a lot of interesting ideas. Relativity, special relativity, Einstein's ideas that were not famous, for example, like the variable speed of light, his ideas later on, stuff that's not really prevalent, are actually pretty good ideas. And so I moved away from just completely denouncing and decrying all the larger theories that everyone really wants to pull apart and just take what we can from them and kind of piece it all together. Now, granted, like some of the really big ideas like stellar metamorphosis, just no one will even talk about or touch because it changes so many things. Same thing with the extended mind and consciousness. People won't touch that. People won't touch the fact that they're God because it gives you a tremendous amount of responsibility for being here. And connected electrical cables in space. Again, lots of people will take that idea and just say, well, no, there's just no way. So are 100 professors wrong and you're right? What gives you the right to say that? And then, yeah, those are some really huge ideas that I'm just telling y'all. I'm just saying it on a public show on YouTube. And people will hear that and just tune it out no matter what, because in a way, where I've gotten to is trying to understand human interaction from the standpoint of understanding the geometry of things. And I've equated this in the past to the idea of the flesh of the apple and the seeds of the apple, and this relationship, this equilibrium that is reached between flesh and information. So you wouldn't want the flesh to be seed, and you wouldn't want the seed to be flesh, because you don't need that much seed to propagate, but you definitely need the flesh of the apple for it to propagate. So the balance between flesh and seed is the same between performer and audience, the same between the people who are the leaders and the followers. It's the same between the pinnacle of things and the rest of things. And therefore we need the flesh, and we also need the seeds. And when you tell the flesh that, oh, well, I'm a seed and I can actually take all the information from this tree and go to another part of the country and grow another apple tree from my information, and you can't, in a way. Like, the flesh can't really do that. If you throw an apple without the seeds, you're not going to get under the tree. So it's a very interesting dichotomy of knowledge and ignorance, but both must exist. They necessitate each other for the whole thing to work. So that's sort of how I've tried to understand why we live in a world of confusion. Yo, fantasy, what's happening? Looking good tonight. I know it's like such a gorgeous night out, perfect moon phase. If you missed it, check the video, the start of the video. I had a really good shot of Orion as well tonight. So lucky. Renegade says, stand on the shoulders of giants, don't pull their statues down. Well, certain statues of some really violent MFers, but generally speaking, what you're referring to is old science idols and archetypes. But it's very tempting, you know, like but like a lot of people in the alternative science community, people who I like and people whose ideas I like, are really all about like tearing apart things, tearing apart the old paradigms, up to and including Thunderbolts Project, because they don't have it all figured out, and Sky Scholar doesn't have it all figured out, and Jeffrey doesn't have it all figured out. Like, the whole cool thing about science is that there's more to discover and more to learn. But the problem with mainstream is that they'll tell you, well, if you don't know math, you'll never learn. And if you don't follow these rules, you'll never learn. And I don't think that's how people learn. People learn by being given the tools to learn. And so I think that's why alternative physics has caught on, but I also think that the approach to changing the paradigm has to be more nuanced, and to embrace all the little bits and pieces that were good from the traditional ideas and evolve those, as opposed to throwing away all those ideas, as tempting as it is. So, all right, little break here. And we'll go, I don't know. I was going to zoom in. Let's zoom in and see what Sinus Iridum is looking like tonight. And, of course, Copernicus is popping. 3:52 a.m., going a little bit longer here. open wide soul modulation. You just come feel this ride so high, your love I'm craving. But I can't see it till you. Just bring me back. Just bring me back out of the cold. Just bring me back. Feel your open wide soul modulation. Just feel this ride so high, your love I'm craving. Just can't see it till you just bring me back. Just bring me back out of the cold. You know, bring me back. All right, hopping in here to say what's up to NGC. Wonderful to see you. Sending you lots of love. Hope you're feeling okay. I definitely know, yeah, definitely know it's tough. Tough out there. Hope everyone else is feeling good. I see Arum Vorax. I mean, everyone's feeling good, not everyone else. All of you are feeling good. I'm feeling all right. I'm a little bit tired, but today was a good day. It's been a couple of rough days. Also got my old mom going through some stuff. And so dealing with that, if anybody's dealing with an older parent at this time in their lives, it's heavy sometimes. But today was good. And yeah, that's why I'm up tonight. I was just working on some music. Mostly I've been working on a lot of new stuff, and I've been kind of hiding it a little bit because I do want to finish them. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll get super excited and start playing all the demos for y'all, and then I'll feel like I can't go back and get them done. So maybe, a couple of weeks from now, maybe next moon cycle, stay tuned for like a bunch of new songs, like actually good ones. Like fully thought out, fully realized tracks that I'm excited about. Hurdy-gurdy, man. You take it easy. Have a great night. Say must go. All right. I'll catch you on the next one. Great swimming together. That's how I feel, too. So I switched it up for True Man. I see True Man in the chat. I see a Rum. I see NGC. Did I miss anyone else? Let me see. Yeah. I think that's it. But yeah, I wanted to put up some Earthshine, Dark Side of the Moon. You can see... Oh, wow. Cloud just swooped right in. I know, Truman, you were asking about the inverted thing, but it's really weird. For some reason, this filter on this particular upgrade of OBS doesn't let me do the inverted reverse shot for some reason. You saw I was trying to mess with it. It's so weird. Can't tell you how many glitches have been happening, but I'm not going to whine about it at 4 in the morning. I see Manos in the chat. Good wishes to you. True man, have a great night. Let's see. Waleed says, have I considered enabling super chats? Would love to support the channel. I have actually. I've tried to. I do this really for the love of it. It's very nice that people want to support. I do have a PayPal, and I was actually, people were buying music from Bandcamp to support the channel, but recently I was saying don't buy anything from Bandcamp until I figure out like what platform I want to be on for sure, because Bandcamp requires some weird stuff. But I appreciate the sentiment. Don't worry about it. Your presence and comments are more than enough. Definitely share the video if you like, and I'll be posting more music. I also have links to the Spotify and iTunes version of the first 3 albums I did, like Captain of the Stars, Call in My Mind, and Vibration Theater are full records that you can stream. If a few people support, I could upgrade sooner. What do you want me to upgrade to? I pretty much have like all the fancy gear that you can put in a house in a backyard. Look at this shot. It's amazing, actually. It's so rare to see those 2 little specks. Those aren't stars through the moon, although it would be okay if people thought were like a little bit confused by it, because it does look really interesting. But those are actually lit portions of the moon that are glinting. On the left-hand side, you can see at least the one at the rim is actually all the way up, and it's peeking off the side. And then there's another one right around, I want to say that's around North Mare Imbrium, where you can also see a bit of the regolith popping through the negative portion. Really, really cool. 8K, larger scope. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the main thing about the larger scope and the bigger setup is it requires a house and a big yard and a dome, and that upgrade is like a lot more than you could really get support for. You know, buying a home is especially in Florida nowadays with the real estate market, that's on a much larger budget. So I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the housing market before I can get into a new place. So right now, for the place that I'm at, having like an 11-inch, an 8-inch, and all the cool gear, it's like I'm kind of stocked, to be honest. I know that doesn't sound very humble, but I'm very blessed with the fact that I've been able to afford all this stuff and then share it for free. Again, if I monetize the channel, which, I mean, I actually turned on monetization a while ago, like years ago, and then actually, that's not true. They ask you to sign this contract or some sort of agreement on the back end of YouTube to enable monetization, and I just never wanted to sign that. Mostly because, like, I don't know. I just didn't want to do it. So I don't think I've ever really done that, and that's what enables super chats and comment chats and stuff like that. Either way, I do appreciate the sentiment. You can definitely direct if somebody, you know, I'm stuttering a lot, but people have bought a ton of music on Bandcamp. It's been much appreciated. That has helped definitely provide a lot of gear for the camera and the streaming software and all that stuff, little odds and ends here and there. And then at some point, if I really get the place that I want to live in and get a big yard, and I want to buy like maybe a 17-inch scope and a dome, then maybe I'll actually set up a real proper page for it where people can donate and actually contribute. But yeah, at this point, very blessed. Everything's already paid for. I like to do this so I can pretty much say whatever I want. I don't want people to feel like I'm asking for money or likes or anything like that. This is purely educational, fun, and I get to share my music with a small fan base, and that reward alone, like people actually liking my music and listening to my music at whatever stage is worth way more than money. But anyway, thank you. Mano says, would be good to see a video of my setup. Is there one on your channel? Nope, nothing personal on my channel, pretty much. I don't know. I wanted to keep myself out, keep myself out of it. But you know what I mean? Like, all these channels have people in the videos, and like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and this is my family and this is my dog, and I wanted this channel to be really space centric, like really vibey, and like not give myself any room to like just it's not a self-indulgent channel, even though I'm sure it has turned really into one. But that's kind of why I haven't done any like, this is my gear and this is my setup and this is all my stuff. And then I ended up getting addicted to just making this kind of the broadcast from the edge of reality. Like, you're in the middle of the post-apocalyptic desert and TakeBackSpace comes through, and it's like immediately you can check out the position of stars and the moon and the planets, and the voice comes out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, here's some electric vibes, y'all. So I'm kind of addicted to that romantic idea of the show, the Baghdad Cafe, Jeff Buckley at Shanae. Back in the day when you listened to records and you just imagined what the person who singing them was like, and there's just a whole mystery and mythos to the music and the art. You didn't even really need to know who made the music. It was just like coming through from the pirate broadcast signal in the middle of the night, and you're just like, wow, it's blowing my mind. I think music has been robbed of that because you know way too much about the artist nowadays. So let's see. Aram says, I bought some Bandcamp. Much rather do that than give YouTube. Yeah, also YouTube takes pretty much 30 to 50% of anything people donate. So it's like, it's a whole thing. Yeah. Waleed says, well, it would be well deserved. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, like I said, listening to the tunes, being here on each show is just like such a reward for me. The fact that I can do it is already a blessing. So. Mano says, I share your ethos, retired DC. I treat for excuse me. I treat for exchange of good or service or not, or whatever people want to give or not. Yeah, I think so much information nowadays is gatekept, is just mired in celebrity and cult culture. It's rapid fire. There's really no patience. Everything's hyper edited. You know too much about the person's like, again, I feel like maybe I'm being, I don't mean to be unself-aware here. I'm sure like this channel can be viewed as self-indulgent. It's my opinion. I get to like do all this stuff, but for me, I wanted the channel to be kind of a conduit of information where I can learn as I go along. I can share exactly what I'm learning at the time, and then we we connect the dots together. And so, and it's been great like this. I've learned so much from my chat, and I've actually been able to have witnesses in the chat to what we've captured on the moon. And we haven't captured anything really funny on the moon in a long time, but back in the day it used to be pretty regular. All the lunar waves and the flybys and stuff like that. Now the real mysteries that are being uncovered are the morphic field and stellar metamorphosis, just grand ideas. So it's perfectly fine. Can I zoom out a little? Yeah, let me get back to our normal shot. It's actually already fading. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, so I'm on the 11 tonight, and it's kind of, that's all right. Yeah, let's just do the regular shot of the moon while she disappears under my windowsill. I said I was going to go over to Sinus Iridum, but I've reneged. Let's see. The mysterious narrator is way cooler than turning yourself into a character. Yeah, I mean, and NGC says, I like mystery, it's more mysterious. Yeah, it's one of these things. Hey, like when I grew up in the 50s now, when I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, I had this little radio, this tube. It was like this cheap Chinese radio, and I lived in a different country, and I had this tiny little radio. I think maybe I was 10, 11 years old, and I used to like unravel the very thin antenna and put it up on the windowsill and try and listen to radio broadcasts at like 3 in the morning. And you get stuff from Greece and from Spain, and you get weird stuff from like, I just don't know, from all over the place. I had no idea really. I was just tuning into stations, and that was one of the most exciting times because we had no, of course, no internet, and you didn't really have the ability to check on anything. So anything you heard was just kind of like this extreme not novelty in a diminishing way, but novelty in a like, holy shit, what is this? Where is it coming from? Who's singing this? What are they talking about? Like, what country is this? And that has stuck with me. Like when I first did the show, I was like, can I capture that in an age of like overwhelming information? So thanks for the vote of confidence. Large shutter time now. I think it's pretty much done, Truman. Yeah, the moon's about to go and there are clouds, so next time, next cycle. Waleed says, you have a talent in breaking down complex ideas into easy to understand bits. That's really kind of you to say. I practice that as much as I can. I also work in the creative field, and it's something that I typically kind of do with the design and software. And you said you're a software engineer, so you know what it's like to delegate and to project manage and to cross-reference and to do preparation and stuff like that. So getting into astronomy and science and all the stuff that I talk about was just really one of those things where if you apply good business practices and a good artistic and creative approach to it, you can really get down and dirty with a ton of ideas that seem extremely foreign to us typically. Like, for example, optics, for example, astrophysics. It's one of those things where you're like, well, if I don't go and do this and this and this and this, then I'll never learn astrophysics, or I'll never understand black holes, dark matter, all this stuff. So it's been great to be able to implement tools that I've been practiced on my whole life into something like science and astronomy and so on. And it worked really well. Yeah, no, all good, Truman. Truman. Every time you're in the chat, obviously, you remind me of the movie. That movie is just like so excellently done, so well acted. Truman Show, of course. But here, I'll give you a note that I have about the Truman Show that most people don't really think about. They're like, oh, this Truman and that Truman. But think about all the people that had to work on the Truman Show. These people who basically had their entire existences robbed, where they couldn't have a unique existence, where they had to exist just in order for people to watch Truman. And they never talk about it, but that's a little bit like the reality that we live in right now, where people are myopic about certain individuals, but they don't realize that it takes the rest of the world for these individuals to exist, like the necessitative function of the self against the other, the small against the large, the population against the individual, or not even against in terms of verses, but against in terms of relational necessitation. That it's very, very interesting that you have this movie where people derive this thing about this one person, and we're very myopic about it because we don't consider the plight of the thousands of people that are also trapped in the so-called simulation. Even though they know it's a simulation, they have to keep pretending. So it's even worse for those people than it is for Truman. Similarly, like the myopia is how people read a book, for example, and they don't consider the pages of the book. They only immediately look at the words and they start deriving meaning from the words. But as Alan Watts once said, if you really consider without the page, without the blank page or the paper behind the words, no words, and further, no meaning. And therefore, it's such a thing where, unless somebody points it out, you don't consider counter space or everything else around the luminous matter that we see. And therefore, we can't really throw away conceptual dark matter, but we can actually give it a real world explanation, which is that it is conscious plasma in dark mode and its potential reality. And there's no mystery to it because we deal with it constantly. It's what things arise from. And so we are completely aware of it because we also make our own existence of it. We are self-organizing of the grander intelligence. And there's total proof of it. Total proof. Rumvorik says their life was the show, right? Yeah. But they don't really, they sort of mention it, like when his wife loses her shit and she's like, I'm not working, working conditions suck. Laura Linney, she loses her shit. But and some of them do, but like, yeah, all the people trapped inside the bubble with Truman all have to pretend that they're in a real world when they know they're in a simulation. At least Truman gets to live thinking that everything is normal for a bunch of years before he realizes it's a simulation. And also, like, now that he's left, who's the next Truman? All these people are out of jobs. So he really, the rest of the town gets screwed. Actually, didn't WandaVision just do something like that, where she gets out scot-free, but the rest of the town gets like mentally hijacked by the Scarlet Witch? I don't know. All right, Nebula says, guy played like crap, grinded his clock down, was winning. Oh, you're talking about chess, yeah. Guy played like crap, grinded his clock down, was winning, then all of a sudden with 2 minutes left, he turned into a grandmaster and killed me. Cheaters. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you the ups and downs of chess that I go through, but it sounds a lot like that. That's why you always gotta, like, just never underestimate anybody online that you play. I'm always expecting them to be like, just like super players that pretend not to play well, and then they'll just screw you. Just exactly what you talked about. So now I just treat every deal like that. All right, so Luna is about to fade, I believe. Man, it's lasted a lot longer than I thought, but the 11 is kind of at its limit right here. And I think I mentioned it, but I don't know if I'm going to stay up tomorrow for the next phase. So this is the last moon for this cycle, and I'm pretty happy with the output this month, I gotta say. Pretty happy, because I read this whole thing. I was like, man, I'm going to do as many nights as I can in September. It is September, right? Yeah, it is. All right, let's play a couple of tunes here while this fades out. Let me know if you have any other thoughts. I appreciate all the chat. And what song we're going to play here? stuff painted on my walls. Backlights finding ways to design our space. I feel it like you want, but also perfectly fit. How is this nothing else? Alright, y'all, I tripped on the wire, so the scope went out. Perfect timing anyway. 4:23 a.m. A great, fun end of the cycle stream. Maybe I'll do another one coming up with Jupiter, and yeah, pretty much Jupiter is the next target. So I don't know if I'll wait till the next moon stream, but oh, what a beautiful cloud coming through. But yeah, this is the moon for this cycle. Really wonderful. Appreciate all of you so much. NGC, so happy to see you. Stay well. I'll check my email more often. Sorry I missed you on that one. Renegade, thanks for all the great comments. Waleed as well. Truman, Truman Zoo, take care. Nebula, Orion, good luck with your chess games. Keep working at it. Always great. Manos, thanks for showing up. Hurdy-gurdy man, I know you already left. Who else did we have? I know Copper was here for a moment. Copper Chops, have a great night. Richard Garcia. Sigma Theta. Gnostic Chef, Effed Up World, and I think that's it. If you catch us tomorrow, hope you're having a great day. I'll catch you all real soon on the next show through space. I don't know, yeah, definitely give Jeffrey Walensky a follow. Eileen McCusick, Rupert Sheldrake, watch his last video. Watch Thunderbolts Project, Buddy James's stuff. Nobody has all the answers, but they're getting there. Alexander Unziker, Real Physics, dyslexic artist theory on the physics of time, Sky Scholar, Electric Universe Eyes, and on, and on, and on. Next cycle, tons of new tunes. I know you all are going to really enjoy them. I'm going to sleep well tonight. Good night, Space Watchers. It's your captain signing off. Bonne nuit. Or bonjour. Bonjour. Ciao, ciao.